Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Surrounded by Bourbon with me, Phil Crawford. This is episode 27 and today we have a rather lovely whiskey, so I'm giving away my viewpoint already. But this is from Dunville's. This is their 12-year-old VR cask, 1710. This is a cask strength single malt Irish whiskey. So let's get into a little bit of the background. So Dunville's is a Lazarus brand, i.e. it was brought back to life by Shane Braniff and by Jarlath Watson, who are the founders of Echlinville Distillery, which is based on the Ards Peninsula just east of Belfast in Northern Ireland. It's a distillery that I know very well, that I'm very fond of. I've managed to rummage around their warehouses on a number of occasions and try some rather exceptional liquid there. And it's also a farm to glass distillery. So they grow their own grain, they malt it, they distill it, they mature it, and then they bottle it in-house, which is a rather exciting type of distillery in my view. Now the stills of Echlinville Distillery came to life in 2013. So obviously it takes a bit of time for a raw spirit to mature and to become whiskey. And so while they waited for their own spirit to mature, they relaunched the Dunville's brand for their sourced third-party spirits and also to show off their sort of cask management skills. So the Dunville family actually has a long history in and around Belfast, dating all the way back actually to 1808. The family was responsible for building railways, for office buildings, and then in 1869 they built the Royal Irish Distillery in Belfast. They also actually built Belfast's first theme park, which was Dunville's Park, and that was built specifically for the distillery workers who had formed the distillery football team, a football team that still exists to this day. Sadly though, the company was liquidated back in 1936, even though it had actually remained profitable even after Prohibition and the War of Independence and so on. So after the death of their last heir and chair, Robert Lambert Dunville in 1931, unfortunately then 5 years later, the company was liquidated. Now, under the stewardship of the guys at Echlinville, the Dunville's range has expanded quite a bit. There are a number of blends such as the 1808, they have the Three Crowns range, which has a sherry finished version, a peated cask finished version, and then we also have the single malts such as the VR 10-year-old PX and Palo Cortado expressions, and also the VR 12-year-old PX, and these are bottled at around 46%. And on top of these releases, well, they have quite a few single casks to impress us little nerds, much like the one that we're reviewing today. So as I said in the introduction, this is cask 1710 from the Dark series of the VR range. This is bottled at 56.9% ABV or 113.8 proof. This was actually their fourth release of the Dark series, so it was bottled in 2021. There were 354 bottles. It cost £112 back in the day, which is roughly $150 or 129 euros. Now this is a bottle that you can probably no longer find unless you maybe try Irish whiskey auctions or different auction houses. So I know I'm reviewing a whiskey that doesn't technically, it's not easy to get, but this is such a good whiskey, I thought I may as well, give a review. So what about the liquid? As we say, this is a sourced liquid, so it is more than likely double distilled Cooley single malt. It is non-chill filtered, it is natural colour, and it spent most of its life in bourbon casks before then spending around 14 months in a Pedro Ximinez cask. So it'll be interesting just to see how that works, because PX can sometimes just be a little overwhelming. So let us get into the nose and the palate, and let's see where we go. So the first thing about this is not your typical sherry bomb. There are sherry notes there, but it is very easy to pick out that coulis spirit, because coulis always has a very, for me anyway, distinct honeysuckle note, and that is present and correct. So then we get like gorse blossom. So if you've never smelt that before, it's something that you find in Ireland and Scotland. It kind of smells like Hawaiian Tropic, the sunscreen. There's stewed apples that are studded with cloves. There's a bit of fresh lemon peel going on. You can smell the malt. It's kind of like draff, which is when the malt's been used up and it's been taken away from the distillery. And then you kind of start getting the sherry notes of plums, there's raisins, there's a bit of maple syrup, and almonds again, some marzipan. So all in all, a very delightful nose, I am going to say. So let's try the palate. So it has a lovely texture to this. It's very chewy, coats your mouth, a lot of flavour. The malt comes through straight away. There's banana bread, vanilla pods, peach cobbler dessert, and caramelized brown sugar. There's a bit of spice to this as well, so probably that European oak has imparted a little bit of spice. So now we're getting sweet cinnamon, there's clove rock, a little hint of like dried red chili flakes, nothing too extreme. And then there's a nuttiness to this as well, so there's like toasted almonds, there's a little bit of milk chocolate going on as well. All in all, this is incredibly Moorish. So before I add water, I will, at full strength, the finish is medium to long. It's biscuity, it's malty, there's a mix of orchard fruit, there's sherry, baking spices, really good. So let's add a little bit of water, and to be honest, this does not need too much water, so I think that'll be enough. The coulis spirit takes water a little better than Bushmills. I would say that Bushmills, even at cask strength, you have to be very careful with how much water you add, but especially the regular range, water is not its friend. But coulis does tend to take water a little better. Maybe that's because it's double distilled, I'm not sure. Anyway, nose wise. So now there's a little bit of rancio, a bit of funk, a little bit of leather. There's spearmint, there's cocoa powder, and a little bit of orange peel. All right, palate wise. So now we're getting kind of like melon, banana liqueur, ginger nut biscuits. Definitely is, because the ginger note comes out pretty strongly now with water. And thankfully as well, the mouthfeel doesn't change much with the water, so it still keeps its structure. The finish maybe does diminish a little bit with water, but you're still getting all those notes I said before, the biscuity malt, the sherry, the orchard fruit, now some of that nearly tropical fruit of like the bananas and stuff as well. And then there is definitely a menthol element at the back. All right, so what am I going to score this? Well, I have to say that I have been very, very fond of the Dark Series range. Some of them are absolute sherry bombs. This one is not. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. This is a fantastic whiskey. I know it's expensive, but trying to get sort of aged truly stock always was kind of a bit expensive over the last few years. But this will go toe to toe with many of the bigger brands that are well known for being sherried. Whether that's like Tamdhu or whether it's Macallan if you're into Scotch, or in Ireland even like your Bushmills, even going into single pot still territory with like Redbreast. This really holds up. Anyway, what I really like about this is that the sherry casks, they interact really well with the actual distillate from Cooley, and the PX has not overshadowed or overpowered the distillate, so you still get all that orchard tropical fruit, you get the nuttiness, and then it's just kind of like elevated a little bit more by the PX, gives you more layers of flavour, and brings out that kind of sweet syrupy note with the kind of candied peels, ginger and so on, but it doesn't overwhelm proceedings. This is absolutely fantastic stuff, well balanced, well executed, well constructed. If I could get another bottle, I would. I do have a sister cask, which I think is cask 1326 that I haven't opened yet. I will at some point, but now that I'm in Florida, trying to get your hands on things like this is pretty hard. So I'm going to nurse this as best I can. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the review. Please again, like, subscribe, comment, please engage, interact with me, and hopefully you found this useful and entertaining. And I will see you again for the next video when we're looking at something Scotch related. Anyway, have a great night. Slàinte to you all.